Hello, my name is Josh Bernin. I am currently a second-year PhD student at Washington State University. Today, we are texturizing plant-based proteins, specifically different kinds of pea. Now, the reason why we are doing this is, the objective of at least my study, is to see how our process parameters on this extrusion machine affect what's in my hand here, which is called HMMA, or high meat moisture analogs. So the screw speed, the temperature, everything affects how you cook a product, and we're trying to figure out what really affects these different kinds of proteins. Now, this is very important in our field, mainly because if we can figure out what process parameters are affecting this, we can then share it with our industry friends, and they can then use it to be able to mass produce this product. Now, this product is extremely important to this global economy, mainly because then we can start doing more agriculture toward peas, toward wheat, toward any sort of these plant-based proteins, and then share it with the general public. This will help reduce a lot of the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with mass-producing beef or other livestock, as well as reducing some of the stigma behind, slaughtering an animal or putting that from farm to fork. So the peas that we get to actually make the protein out of is from our industry partners. So a lot of people will come in here asking to use our facility, our machine, and our expertise to be able to product develop for them. Now, we take that, and they usually give us the donation of proteins that they have left over. And since right now we're not running a full trial, we're just running a pre-trial, we're using this to be able to see what we can set up for the original trial, which then we'll trace it back to that supplier and ask to give us a little bit more to be able to produce everything. The different kinds of peas that we get from our industry producers come from all sorts of plant breeders producing all sorts of different kinds of peas. Now, they're all ground up together and then put into that bag for us. So they standardize it based off of what kind of plant, and they base off of what kind of protein that plant provides. However, you can't necessarily look at a single bag of this pea protein and say this plant is in there. It'll be a variety of different kinds of genomes and different kinds of varieties of that plant. So the process of this machine is pretty simple, even though it looks really complicated, okay? So in this machine, side by side, so like going this way, there are two screws, and they're parallel to each other like that. Now, we call these an Archimedes screw. So back in the old ancient Roman days, they used these screws to deliver water from point A to point B. And we're doing the same with our product here. So the product starts in this feeder and enters here. Now, those screws will carry it all the way down this barrel to about right here. And then the pressure and the force of extra product will push it out this side. Now, this process involves a protein coming in as a native protein, we call it. So it's not changed. So it comes in kind of like my fist. It's all intertwined in itself, and it's in a very big aggregated form or a ball shape. Now, as it continues to go down and it hits this water spigot right here, it'll begin to loosen a little bit. And as it continues, it gets looser and looser until it's completely denatured. So all of our amino acids that are in that protein will begin to kind of uncoil, is what we call it, or denature. And as it keeps going, it'll keep hitting random other proteins that are doing the same thing, and through that they begin to bond and begin to grab each other, and eventually when it gets to right here, they'll grab and they'll hold, and through that cooling die it'll cool it to right here and the product that you see. If we did not have this cooling die, the product will expand like a bubble and kind of look like a piece of bubble gum when you spit it out, like when you were a kid and you're blowing bubbles. So this kind of confines it and solidifies the product into its native state. Without this piece of machinery, I guess this cooling die, we would not be able to make our high meat moisture analogs. So if the extrusion conditions are not right, you'll see a buildup like this and a little bit of dribbling water. However, in extreme circumstances, this will actually blow out like that. So if these are not right, we can influence the moisture content, screw speed, and other parameters to get it back to this beautiful product that you've seen earlier. So a good final product of meat analogs, or HMMA, would consist of being very fibrous. So in the middle, you can see these fibers forming. Now, this isn't the best product that we've ever made in this lab. However, you can see that it kind of resembles a little bit of meat, like chicken meat, when you open it up. Now, we can keep grabbing and tearing, and you can see that it'll change little by little. Now, the times that you get to see the real fibriness of this is if you were to take a scissors or something and cut down the side of it. And you can see how fibrous that can actually be and how different that grabbing it from this end and pulling like this is compared to that. So you have to look at these products from multiple aspects, and how we categorize that is we can use a texture profile analysis, and we can cut it this way and see how strong that is, and then this way and see how strong that is. Now that will indicate whether we have that flow, but our main quality aspect is our eyes. We don't necessarily know a definition of texturization right now. However, we do know that if fibers form like you saw before, that will be considered a texturized product, kind of like the meat of any muscle of any animal that you would consume. The next step for a product like this, since we're a research institute, a lot of our final products actually end up in the trash, unfortunately. But if you were, say, a manufacturer trying to manufacture this on a large scale, you can take this and begin to implement it into burgers, into chicken nuggets, stuff like that. There are other different kinds of texturized vegetable proteins called TVP, which is texture vegetable proteins, and those are very low moisture products. All right, this is a very high moisture product consisting of over 40%. TVP is under 40%, and that is used a lot for the making of, for example, the famous Beyond Burger. They use texturized vegetable protein instead of high meat moisture analogs, and they'd use that just to rehydrate it. This will provide you a lot more of a meaty flavor than the TVP because it's all more meaty texture than TVP because it already has the fibers in it. TVP has those fibers, but they don't have that moisture that is connecting them all together. So a different process, it would look exactly the same as you see here, except if you're doing it on an industry scale, it'll just be bigger. That's the only difference. It'll be the exact same. We'll have to change some of the process parameters like moisture content, temperature, screw speed, and die temperature, but we can change all of those to be able to have a really nice product for any of those proteins. Now, right now, we're looking at some of these underutilized pulses and other utilized grains and trying to figure out how we can really utilize them, and this would be the next step. This extrusion machine is a very diverse machine that can almost texturize anything if you have the right conditions for it, as well as the right know-how. So that's kind of the thing right now is extrusion is about 70% science and 30% art. So if we combine those together, we can get a really nice product. So with this diverse product, you can almost texturize any protein out there right now. You just have to make sure that it is the correct process parameters. And that's what we're trying to find out, if that statement is truly true. Because right now, we were texturing a protein that we couldn't texturize a year ago. And that is because we're just beginning to know what we need to change this machine to be able to get it to texturize and how we can improve that for other grain suppliers like buckwheat, quinoa, mung beans, so on and so forth.